I was standing in my future in-laws' front room on Christmas Day, covered in grease from working on my Challenger suspension, while my future wife looked me dead in the eye and said, "I'll forget you in a week." But here's the real story. I've been planning my way out for 2 months already. And what she didn't know was that every mean thing she threw at me that night was just making her situation worse because I had receipts for everything. My name's Harry. I'm 32. I fix heavy machinery for a job, box 3 times a week, and I've been restoring a 1973 Dodge Challenger since I was 25. And yeah, that car is about to save me in ways you wouldn't believe. Stephanie and I had been together for 3 years, engaged for 8 months. And if you'd asked me 2 years ago, I would have told you she was the one because back then she was funny and driven and made me want to be better. My mom loved her, my friends approved, and I truly believed we were building something real. But somewhere between picking out wedding invitations and signing supplier contracts, she started changing into someone I didn't recognize, and watching that happen slowly over 6 months, painful more than I wanted to admit. We'd agreed to split all wedding costs 50-50ths. It seemed fair since we both worked full-time, but every single bill, venue, deposit, catering, photographer's retainer, somehow ended up on my credit card because Stephanie never had money ready even though she earned decent income as a marketing coordinator. She lived like someone making twice what she got. Always had perfect nails, new clothes, weekend meals at places that charged $18 for avocado toast. But when it came time to pay her part of wedding expenses, all at once she was broke. And could I just cover it? And she'd pay me back next month. Next month never came. And every time I talked about it, she'd turn it into an attack on my morals, telling me I was cheap or didn't really love her if I was counting dollars. And after months of that, I started feeling insane, like maybe I was the problem. My best friend, Mike, who I've known since high school and who documents everything like he's preparing for the end of the world, started keeping very careful records after I mentioned the 3rd time Stephanie avoided a payment. And by November, he'd figured out I'd covered about $11,000 in wedding expenses that were supposed to be joint. Plus, I was still paying 2/3 of her dates. Mike takes pictures of everything, saves email records, photographs, receipts, organizes them into color-coded folders, and used to joke he was overly worried, but that practice was about to save my future. The warning signs got brighter in October when Stephanie started being sneaky with her phone, tilting the screen away, taking calls in the other room. And after 3 years together, you notice when actions change. I mentioned it to Mike over beers, and he softly suggested I start keeping my own records, every cost, every conversation about money, every word she made, just in case things went bad. So that's what I did for 8 full weeks leading up to Christmas, writing down everything while acting like usual on the outside. The Christmas dinner request came mid-December. Stephanie saying I had to be there because her mom wanted to discuss wedding details. I said sure. Finished an early work period, spent 2 hours replacing the Challenger's front suspension because the old parts were broken, cleaned up, and went to her parents' place around 3. The moment I walked in, I knew something was wrong. Stick with this story to the very end. You won't believe the valuable insights and twists that are coming. Remember to subscribe to Reddit Stories Rewind, like, and share this video. The house seemed perfect. Tree with expensive matching ornaments, mulled wine on the stove, holiday music, presents stacked up, but the folks felt icy cold. Her mom hardly looked at me. Her dad gave me a strange tight smile. Her sister Sophia was playing with her phone, and Stephanie was stuck to her screen with this little smirk, typing away like she was posting her own trap. We sat down for dinner, and for 20 painful minutes, everything was forcefully normal. Handing dishes, light chat about holiday shopping, her dad asking about work, but you could feel stress building. Then Sophia mentioned honeymoon spots, and Stephanie's whole attitude changed to attack mode. She started into this talk about how I wasn't pulling my weight with money, how I cared more about that dumb car than our future, how she was sick of being with someone with no goals who spent every free hour in a garage covered in motor oil. Her family just nodded like they'd been given instructions, like I was walking into a show where everyone knew their parts except me. Then Stephanie stood up, lifted her wine glass like she was making a toast, and said she was finished with a man who had no motivation, that she didn't need someone who lived in a garage. And then she let out the secret about there being guys out there who really knew what they wanted from life. Men like Timmy. Sophia's face turned white. Her dad's fork fell noisily. Her mom just looked into her wine, and I saw her mom had been aware of the cheating. But Sophia and her dad were learning it for the first time, just like me. But Stephanie wasn't done because she pulled off the engagement ring I'd spent 2 months overtime on and tossed it at me hard enough that it bounced off my chest and landed on the ground with this metal ping. She told me it was cheap, just like everything I did, and then gave what was supposed to be the final hit. She looked straight at me and said, "I'll forget you in a week. I've practically already forgotten you." On Christmas Day, in front of her family, she just destroyed our 3-year bond and told everyone she'd been unfaithful with some guy named Timmy. And the crazy thing is I'd thought something, but hadn't known for certain until that moment. I stood up slowly, and for about 5 seconds, I felt anger. But then this strange peace came over me because she'd just done exactly what Mike and I half expected, gone nuclear before watchers, and gave me all I required. I bent down, picked up the ring, took her extra key to my apartment from my pocket, and set on the table, glanced at her father, and said, "Thank you for having me, and I was sorry it had to end this way." Then walked out while Stephanie started yelling things I didn't hear. I sat in my truck for 10 seconds, texted Mike. It happened. She went full nuclear starting protocol now, and went to his home while my phone blew up with messages from Stephanie that went from angry to confused to panicked in 15 minutes. Mike opened his door, saw my face once, said she really did it. And I agreed while he took his laptop because we each knew what followed. Look, I'd spent 8 weeks getting ready for exactly this. Not because I wanted it to end, but because I'd begun recognizing financial manipulation and emotional gaslighting that Mike helped me document. Every time I'd mention uneven expenses, she'd attack my character. And following many months of that, I felt like I was going crazy. But Mike persuaded me to save everything. Screenshots, bank statements, emails, voice memos, just in case things fell apart, and I required proof I wasn't insane. That night, sitting in Mike's apartment while he opened folders of carefully arranged evidence, I experienced this strange calm because for the first time in months, I wasn't mixed up or doubting myself. I saw the entire pattern in black and white, and I understood precisely what came next. The morning after Christmas, I woke up on Mike's couch with 23 missed calls from Stephanie and around 50 messages that started sorry at midnight, became blaming by 3 a.m., and fell into confusing talk by sunrise. And the first thing I did was change every lock on my apartment because she'd owned that extra key for 6 months. The most shocking parts are still ahead. Watch this video all the way to the end to see how it finishes. Don't forget to subscribe to Reddit Stories Rewind, like, and share this video. Mike was awake sitting at his kitchen table with his laptop and 3 colored highlighters arranged like surgical instruments. And he looked up with grim satisfaction and said we had all needed to take apart her story. The plan was simple but thorough. Block Stephanie in all places. Update emergency contacts at work and insurance to take her off. Start organized wedding supplier cancellation. And most importantly, do a full financial check of every dollar I'd spent that was supposed to be split 50/50ths. Mike had made this detailed spreadsheet listing every wedding expense by vendor, date, amount, and who was legally obligated to pay what. And seeing 3 years of unfairness laid out was truly shocking because I've been paying in pieces and hadn't seen how uneven it became. The venue deposit alone was $4,500 completely from my account. Catering was $3,200. The photographer $1,500 plus, maybe 15 smaller expenses going way past my fair share. I started making calls that afternoon. And here's something helpful most people don't know. Many wedding vendors have fair cancellation policies if you're after certain time windows. And since our wedding wasn't until early June, and this was December. I was in the money-back zone. The venue returned $3,000 of the $4,500. The caterer refunded $2,400 of $3,200. The photographer kept his retainer as per contract, and I got back about $4,350 total. Then 2 weeks after Christmas, right when I thought the refund job was done, the venue coordinator called sounding worried. It seems Stephanie had contacted them claiming I'd stolen her identity to cancel and that she never agreed, and they'd stopped my refund waiting for investigation. I sat staring at my phone, understanding that she was purposely wrecking my chance to recover money I'd paid. And that's when I understood this wasn't a clean break. This was a fight. Mike showed up within 20 minutes. We spent 3 hours proving that every payment came from my accounts with my signatures, including emails showing I'd been the only one talking to them. We drove to the venue next morning, showed them the evidence, and they released the refund within an hour. But the whole thing showed me Stephanie wasn't going forward. She was destroying everything down on her way out. The engagement ring was harder since you can't return made-to-order jewelry. But I'd worked with the jeweler Gregory years back, and he purchased it back at 60%, adding another piece to my pocket. As Mike and I went through shared expenses with forensic detail, we found Stephanie had collected $1,247 in charges that were supposed to be joint, where she promised to pay half but never did. The engagement party where she demanded expensive wine, a venue tour weekend where she made better our hotel without asking, and other times where she made decisions using money, then got forgetful about paying me back. Mike suggested small claims court. I paused because part of me wanted to be done, but then I remembered her stopping my venue refund and saw she wouldn't let this end peacefully. We built what Mike called the evidence Bible. Bank statements, text screenshots with agreements to repay, ignored payment app requests, detailed expense lists, all organized with tabs, and a table of contents. Filing fee was $35. Court date set for early March. Meanwhile, Stephanie's behavior got worse from annoying to truly worrying. Sorry Christmas texts disappeared by the 27th. Change for accusations I'd embarrassed her. And by New Year's, she was sending long messages about how I destroyed her life. Her family was unhappy. Her sister wouldn't talk to her. And for some reason, this was my fault for not fighting for our relationship after she'd announced her affair. She called from various numbers after I blocked her. Came to my gym twice until staff stopped her. Drove past my apartment so much that my neighbor said seeing her car. Tried getting into my job, claiming she needed to drop something off. I documented everything. Screenshots, call records, visit dates and times, witness statements, and after the 5th event, called police non-urgent line asking about creating an official harassment file. The officer was useful, said my documentation was strong, and if behavior got worse, I'd have enough for a restraining order. Mid-January, Mike showed up with something major. You need to see how the evidence is used. Keep watching until the end for the full payoff. Subscribe to Reddit Stories Rewind, like, and share this video. By using social media online digging, he found out Stephanie's affair wasn't recent. It had been going on 8 months, almost since we got engaged in April. Worse, Mike found records showing hotel rooms and weekend trips she said were work conferences or girls' weekends, all paid on our joint wedding expense account. She'd been paying for her affair with money meant to build our future. And when Mike showed me those highlighted charges, I felt terrible. There was Napa in May. She called a marketing conference, a beach hotel in August, said to be a bachelorette party, a downtown hotel in September she claimed was a late client dinner. All on our wedding card. I sat staring at those charges, and that was the closest I came to breaking down completely, because the financial manipulation was one thing, but this felt like planned betrayal on another plane. Mike asked if I was okay, and I couldn't answer for a minute. Then I spent 4 hours in my garage replacing the Challenger's brake lines because I needed something with simple steps and visible progress. By midnight, I was back to calm and focused. But something changed. I wasn't just protecting myself anymore. I was going to make sure there was total accounting. Timmy turned out to be a mid-level sales manager, married with 2 kids, no intention of leaving his wife no matter what he'd promised Stephanie. Mike found Timmy's wife's public Facebook showing regular suburban family, doing soccer games and birthdays. And from Stephanie's increasingly crazy social media posts, we could tell she was just understanding that Timmy had used her and was never leaving his marriage. She destroyed everything for a guy who'd been lying the whole time. And watching that understanding hit through angry posts about men being trash was almost pleasing in a dark way. Around this time, my relationship with Betty became something more. She'd worked at Pete's Auto Parts for years. We chatted in a friendly way dozens of times, but it was just friendly shop talk. I came in for seat brackets, and she brought up restoring a 1969 Camaro SS. We talked 45 minutes about suspension geometry and brake conversions, and I realized I was having the first truly relaxed conversation in months where I wasn't figuring out who owed what or wondering if I was being manipulated. We got coffee, and I talked 45 minutes straight about vendor contracts and court getting ready. Sure, I'd ruined any second meetup, but Betty said she'd been through her own messy breakup where her ex tried claiming he'd paid for things she'd actually paid for, so she understood. She was direct, calm, knew her stuff, paid for her own coffee, and being around her felt like the reverse of Stephanie's exhausting chaos. We started meeting at car shows. Then she helped put in seats in the Challenger. And while neither of us was hurrying into anything, I knew this was what healthy looked like. Someone who came when they said they would, paid their own way, didn't need drama to feel alive. Stephanie found out some way, and that's when things got really wild. There's this indoor go-kart place called Velocity Track we visit monthly. And one Friday in late January, we were there for someone's birthday when Stephanie showed up without being asked, clearly drunk, charging into the lobby, yelling about how I cheated and destroyed her life. She pointed at Betty, calling her names I won't repeat, telling everyone I'd been seeing someone without her knowing, completely changing history. Betty looked lost, having only known me 2 weeks, and I was about to calm things when Stephanie grabbed someone's helmet and hurled it at the wall hard enough to break the visor. Manager called cops. They issued official trespass warning banning her forever, and I added everything to the evidence Bible. My phone vibrated with more messages that night, but I just screenshotted them and went back to talking carburetors with Betty while Stephanie's life fell apart somewhere outside my worry. The small claims court date was on a Tuesday morning in early March. One of those gray late winter days where you can see your breath in the parking lot. And I showed up 45 minutes early with Mike, carrying a briefcase that looked like it belonged to a big company lawyer, even though we were arguing over $1,200. Stephanie came in 10 minutes late, wearing her job interview outfit, looking tired with dark circles, makeup, couldn't hide, carrying just a purse, but no documentation. The courtroom scene is crucial. Watch all the way to the end to see how justice plays out. Subscribe to Reddit Stories Rewind, like, and share this video. And when we got asked to enter, she kept trying to look into my eyes like that would change the result. The judge was this woman probably in her 60s who looked like she'd seen every relationship problem version possible and had zero tolerance for nonsense. And she started by asking Stephanie if she had evidence arguing against my claim that she owed money for shared expenses she'd agreed to split. Stephanie began this long, confusing story about how the relationship was not simple and I'd always made more money, so it wasn't fair to expect equal payment when I knew she was having a hard time. Completely ignoring that she'd been spending more than she had and her problems hadn't stopped with weekly manicures or expensive restaurant meals. The judge stopped her mid-sentence with this look of deep tiredness, asked if she had any bank statements or text messages or receipts showing she'd paid her share. And when Stephanie admitted she didn't bring proof because she didn't think she'd need documentation for what was clearly unfair, I watched the judge's expression move from neutral to completely finished. Mike and I gave the evidence Bible, about 40 pages organized with tabs and highlights, and a table of contents that was probably too much, but Mike doesn't do anything halfway. And the judge looked through for maybe 3 minutes, occasionally nodding, then looked up and decided Stephanie owed me $13.25, including original amount plus court fees, to be paid within 30 days or face wage garnishment. Stephanie's face became white, and she started to stand up to argue, but the judge just said, "Next case." And that was it. 3 months of drama fixed in 8 minutes of court time. We walked out into the gray morning, and Mike did this little victory fist pump while I felt mostly just worn out and ready to stop thinking about Stephanie and actually move forward instead of just living through her chaos. I really thought that would be the end, that losing in court would make her see she needed to move on. But it seems humiliation is a push for some people rather than a stopping point. The next 3 weeks were mostly quiet in a way that felt scary, like quiet before a storm you know is coming but can't see. She paid the court order in 2 parts right before deadline. Her social media went completely silent. Mutual friends said she'd moved back with her parents, and I started feeling calm, thinking maybe this was actually over. Betty and I had been spending more time together working on the Challenger seats I'd bought with refund money, and things felt truly good for the first time in years. Like I was building something real instead of surviving someone else's chaos. Then came the night of March 20th, which I remember clearly because it was the first truly warm evening of early spring. That special night where winter finally ends and Betty and I had decided to work late in my garage with the door open, putting in the new upholstery we'd spent weeks picking out. It was around 10:30 and we were talking about seatbelt mount routing when I heard a car pull up way too fast outside. Tires making a screaming noise slightly, and before I could understand what was happening, Stephanie came walking unsteadily into my garage wearing pajama pants and an oversized jacket, holding what was clearly a wine bottle, absolutely very drunk to the point she could barely walk straight, and immediately started screaming at a loudness that probably woke half my neighborhood. She ranted about how I destroyed her whole life, turned her family against her, turned all her friends away, made everyone think she was the bad guy when all she'd done was fall in love with someone else. How Timmy had blocked her and his wife threatened her with a restraining order and she lost him because of me in some way. How she lost apartment deposits because the landlord found her background check showing the go-kart trespass. And in some way in her mind, all this destruction was my fault for not being strong enough to forgive her mistakes and fight for what we had. Betty just stood there holding a socket wrench, looking completely confused. And I pulled out my phone and called 911, telling them calmly that my ex-fiancée had entered my property without permission, was clearly drunk, and I needed officers to come. Stephanie kept yelling about how she was worthy of better, how Betty was just some cheap replacement who couldn't compare to what we'd had, how I should have fought for our relationship instead of giving up without trying, completely not seeing the irony after she'd thrown a ring at me on Christmas and announced her 8-month affair to her family. The cops showed up within 8 minutes, which felt like hours, while Stephanie moved unsteadily around my garage, getting very close to the Challenger, making me worried she'd hurt it. And the responding officers handled it perfectly. They asked Stephanie to step outside in a tone that left no room for argument, performed a field sobriety test in my driveway that she failed very badly, checked their system, and found all previous harassment reports, plus the go-kart trespass, then arrested her for criminal trespass, public intoxication, and violating conditions of her previous warning. She kept screaming my name as they put her in the patrol car with hands cuffed behind her back, saying I'd regret this, and she'd never let me forget her, and I'd ruined both our lives and a bunch of unclear, messy stuff that probably didn't help her case. Then they drove away with lights on, and the street got quiet again, except for crickets and distant highway traffic. Betty looked at me half concerned and half surprised and asked if that happened often. And I told her, no, this was actually the big finish, the final explosion I'd been halfway expecting for weeks. And we went back inside and finished screwing in the passenger seat while I gave her the very short version of the past 4 months. We took the Challenger out for a test drive around midnight, just driving through empty streets with windows down and the engine rumbling with that deep muscle car sound that never gets old. And I realized Stephanie had been wrong about pretty much everything, but especially one thing. She'd said she'd forget me in a week, that she'd practically already forgotten me, standing in her parents' living room on Christmas with that smirk like she'd already won. But here we were almost 3 months later, and she was the one who couldn't let go, who destroyed her own life, trying to prove some point that didn't even make sense, who'd given up something steady for something short-term, then blamed everyone else when it fell apart. I never forgot her either, but not in the way she'd meant it as some threat. I remembered her as a lesson about red flags and financial boundaries and the importance of having friends like Mike who document everything and tell you the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. The Challenger ran like a dream with the new seats. Very comfortable, Betty and I got breakfast at some 24-hour diner and talked about upgrading the brake system. And somewhere across town, Stephanie was dealing with results of her own choices, which honestly had nothing to do with me anymore. She'd wanted to be remembered forever, wanted to be the one who walked away and moved on to something better. But instead, she became exactly what she'd accused me of being: forgettable, not important, and stuck in the past while everyone else moved forward. What do you think about this story? Let me know in the comments. Drop a like, and don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories. This story shows why you should never ignore the warning signs. If you watched all the way to the end, you saw the full, valuable lesson. Please support Reddit Stories Rewind by subscribing, liking, and sharing this video with others.